Hello, World Congress 2020. It's my absolute pleasure to be with you at this groundbreaking event at this unprecedented time, sharing with you something that we're really passionate about. So my name is Wayne Clarke and I'm honoured to be an ambassador for JCI. I've been an ambassador for the last 7 or 8 years now. My job as a JCI ambassador and my commitment has always been to do two things. One is to help educate the JCI, certainly Young Leader Network, about the mindset of business leaders and CEOs around the world, because I believe that JCI can make a huge impact if it can engage better with the private sector and with corporate leaders. My job on the reverse side of that is to educate corporate leaders, and the way that I've done that over the last few years is to bring CEOs to JCI events all around the world and help to educate CEOs and leaders of some of the world's largest organizations, not just about JCI, but also about the causes that JCI is so passionate about. That was, of course, MDGs and have late been the SDGs. And I've had the opportunity to bring some of the, I guess, more people-focused type of CEOs from organizations like Deloitte, from banks, Credit Suisse, from oil organizations like Premier Oil. And actually we had one of the leaders, the CEO from Premier Oil in Vietnam, come to New York for the JCI Partnership Summit a couple of years ago. We had the vice chairman of Deloitte, and he has nearly 50,000 staff and has a $10 or $11 billion turnover business. And he came also to JCI Partnership Summit in New York, where we got to create a dialogue with some of these really great leaders. And the overwhelming feedback from leaders is that they always feel fundamentally educated, and they feel even more exciting, they feel inspired by the JCI network. And that was, for me, the reason why I got involved many years ago, the reason why I've remained as a committed supporter of JCI and the membership all around the world, because for me, it really is the essence of engagement. My organization is called GGI, which is the Global Growth Institute, and we have a team in Europe, in the Middle East, in the Far East, and we've begun operations in the US as well. And our work is designed to help organizations to improve themselves, to grow, and to make sure that they're engaging their people in the pursuit of delivering a better service and therefore enjoying the economic benefits that come with having a really strong organization. The key to engaging and energizing any organization requires a group of people who are committed and fundamentally fired up about the cause that they feel passionate about. And that's sometimes difficult in corporations because some people, like it or not, are there for the money. The one thing that JCI did for me and blew me away actually when I first came across the organization was to find such an amazing group of so many committed young people who weren't just passionate about local action, but about some of the bigger world issues that require a level of altruism and care that you don't find amongst the general population. And I say that because I've now worked with over 700 CEOs and thousands of managers in over 30 countries around the world. So JCI for me represents really the essence, the X factor of what great engagement looks like. And it's why I've been such an avid supporter. I hope you can tell the energy and the passion I have for the organization in my words and my tone of voice, and why I've remained so committed over the last 7 or 8 years to trying to make an impact where I can. And that impact, of course, is to try and bridge these worlds between really important causes and between corporate leaders who can make a bigger impact and a bigger difference. I don't approach it from a negative point of view and believe that leaders aren't doing or are doing bad things. My fundamental belief, having now brought a number of different CEOs and leaders to JCI events, is that we can, as a JCI membership, do a great job in re-educating corporate leaders about some of the challenges that face our planet, and therefore how those organizations, given the amazing resource that they have at their command, can make a greater impact. Often these organizations don't act because they don't care, but they don't act because it's not about the fact that they don't care, it's more about the fact that they're not educated and they just don't understand some of the severity of the challenges that face our planet. So, as I always try to do in every single event I've ever been involved in JCI, my urge is for you to engage with as many senior corporate leaders as possible in your own worlds, in your own orbits of organizations you know, And by educating and sharing some of the things that JCI is so committed to, specifically around 17 SDGs, then of course we can make a bigger impact through the network effect, the multiplier effect of engaging with the private sector. And that leads me to the World Class Manager Programme, because about 6 years ago, we took a view of looking at one of the fundamental challenges that we come across in organizations around the world. And many CEOs tell us that they feel challenged and frustrated sometimes because their managers need developing, but they have a challenge of how do they develop so many managers so quickly. We spoke to managers and leaders also have a challenge around the fact that they're time poor and they also want development. And then we spoke to the majority of people who work in any organization. If you think of the natural pyramid structure of an organization, and the people that are the most junior represent the majority of the people in any organization. And they too wanted to feel better communicated with. They want to feel valued. We want to feel like our impact makes a difference, regardless of whatever we do and whatever organization we work for. So we conducted a piece of research to look at what great managers do. As I said before, I've had the opportunity to meet with and work with over 700 CEOs around the world and thousands of leaders and managers, and also speak to so many different audiences. I realized that there was something in common, something that great leaders and managers seem to do on a regular basis. There were traits, there's behaviors, there's things that successful people do that really they're not necessarily born with, but we can learn from them. So we devoted a huge amount of effort to learn from organizations and leaders all around the world, all the way from New Zealand to Vietnam, to the Middle East, to Africa, to South America, and everywhere else really in between. And we asked a very simple question of what is a world-class manager? And the reason why we asked this very simple question is because so many of the leaders that I've worked with and that our organization works with keep telling us that they want world-class managers. So we asked a really simple question and said, well, what is a world-class manager? And we arrived through our research at 12 definitive things that constitute the idea of what a great or a world-class manager looks like. We created a training program called World Class Manager, believe it or not, and we are delighted to be in partnership with JCI to launch the World Class Manager program to the entire JCI network. The program consists of 12 specific modules that relate to everything from communications to how you best, I guess, inspire people. And I wanted to give you a very quick rundown of the 12 elements that make up the World Class Manager program. So if you're feeling ready, which I'm sure you are, we'll go for it. So let's click these slides. In the background, you may see some slides. Hopefully there's no detail to read, luckily, because it's probably too far away. But we'll start with the first one, number one. And maybe if you have a pen or paper, it might be a great idea to jot some of these things down. And whether you have access to the program in the future or not, my hope is through sharing with you these 12 elements right now, that we can at the very least, give you a good education of what some of the essential traits of world-class managers are. And maybe I'm hoping this will educate you to some degree of things that will help you to propel your career as a great manager and also, of course, as a great leader. So module number one in the program is what we call being a 21st century leader, being a 21st century manager. The whole idea in the first module is that we talk about the idea of stakeholder engagement. All of us at work have got people who we need to influence. They might be in your immediate team, they might be in other departments, they might be outside of your organization. And developing a set of really strong relationships, we realized, was one of the essential traits of some of the most successful people that we came across. We also looked at what a great CEO does, and we believe that a great CEO does three really simple things. They're really laser focused on understanding who they deliver for, the customer. They're really focused on who they need to get the best out of, their people. And they're very, very good at being able to translate strategy and a big picture idea into something practical and useful for people. So the whole idea when we looked at what a great leader, what a great CEO does, we talked about understanding who we serve, understanding how we get the very best from people, and understanding how we translate our strategy into something relevant and practical for our people. So being a great CEO and also understanding what great stakeholder engagement looks like is what the first module of our program is, and it really sets you up for the rest of the modules in the program. Module number 2, we look at what we call great goal setting. So you may be thinking about your next 6 to 12 months in life. You may have a longer range ambition and think about the next 3 to 5 years. You may be thinking about the next 10 to 20 years, depending on your event horizon. One of the good resources to look at here is to look at Elon Musk. So every 10 years, Elon Musk has produced what he calls his master plan. He produced one in 2006, and he produced another one in 2016. And it's really worth looking at, because what Elon Musk does so brilliantly is he breaks down his big 10-year ambition into 4 very specific steps. And in module 2 of the World Class Manager program, we look at what we call great goal setting. Often we're very good as human beings at working really hard, but we're also, most of us, not great at clarifying exactly what it is we want. And in module 2, we'll look at clarifying exactly what it is that we want and setting great goals. And also, of course, if you're managing and leading a team, then this is really important. Module number 3, we focus on what we call inspiring appraisal conversations. So if you've ever had an appraisal conversation with a manager or one of your senior leaders or bosses at work, I guarantee that you would have left that conversation at some point with an emotion. You may have left feeling really happy, really sad, really valued. You may have felt misunderstood. I guarantee there's always an emotion. And we talk about having people leave these conversations essentially feeling inspired, hence why we call it inspiring appraisal conversations. And it's a real art form. It's not a science. There's things that we can learn and we need to practice, and we can get really good at inspiring other people. You may be in an organization, and if you think about the state of some of the companies in some of the countries around the world right now, where the prospect of paying people more money is really an impractical idea. It's impossible in some cases, because some organizations are fighting for their survival. So if we can't promise people more money and we can't promise people pay rises or promotions, what can we do? An inspiring appraisal conversation is all about understanding the individual and making sure that we can create some sort of opportunity, whether it be a learning opportunity, a development opportunity, essentially inspires people on their journey. So inspiring appraisal conversations is module number 3. In module number 4, we talk about time. Our belief is that time is the most precious resource that we have as human beings. We've got a limited, finite amount of it, and how we spend it is really important. So when we think about time, we looked at the average life expectancy rates for men and women. Generally, it's around 80 or so years, 81 years for women, and us men, we do worse. We average around 79 to 80 years. So we live a little less longer than women do. And if we believe that this time is really precious, then of course how we use our time is really key. The 4th module of the program has probably been one of the most successful modules of the World Class Manager program, because it touches such an important nerve for many of us as human beings, which is how do we use our time really effectively. And in this module, we'll look at how we prioritize things, how we put things into the right process and format to therefore create more space and more time. And of course, you can then choose to reinvest the time saved however you see fit. This is definitely one of the traits of the successful leaders and CEOs that I work with. The more successful the CEO, strangely, the more time they seem to have. So the guy who came to New York with me from Deloitte, who was the vice chairman, he has 47,000 something people in the organization. And he's probably one of the most relaxed individuals that I ever meet with. But he has a huge, huge workforce because he's spent a long time building a really strong leadership team. But again, prioritize time, and of course, you end up saving quite a lot of time. Module number 5 looks at what we call meetings. So I'm sure we don't enjoy spending most of our week on Zoom, on Teams, meeting with people at work. It's what we have to do a lot of now, of course, for many people around the world. But meetings has always been a source of frustration in organizations. And we'll look in module number 5 at how do we create meetings, as we say, that people actually want to go to. I know, it's possible. Imagine a meeting where you're like, I really want to go to that meeting. It's possible to create these meetings, and we'll show you how to do that. Module number 6, we look at improving communications. Everywhere that we've been around the world, regardless of country or background in a culture, everyone seems to complain equally about communications. Not in a good way, of course, in a bad way. We need to improve communications is one of the commonly used phrases in organizations. Now, improving communications is very difficult, of course, for the simple reason that what you think is improved communication, I may believe is not improved communication. Which one of us is right? Both of us, neither of us, maybe one of us, I don't know. But it's completely subjective, as we say. So improving communications for an entire group of people, even for a team, is one of the most difficult things to do. However, we believe there's a shortcut. And in module number 6, we look at the specifics around creating great team briefings, which essentially are answering 3 very, very simple questions. What do you want to know? How often? And how best can I get that information to you? So if you think about it, what you think is improved communication, i.e. if you get the information you want, when you want, through the mechanism or method you want, you would probably say that communications is good. So we turn that on its head in this module and say, how do we create a great communication environment for our people? Module number 7 is about understanding who we serve. We call this understanding our customer. Now, you may work in an organization where you'll have internal customers. You may work in an organization where you have external customers. You may be the CEO of your own business where you are serving external customers. One of the things, as we all know, to make sure that we can delight the people we serve is to really understand who we serve. The late Steve Jobs, God rest his soul, talked about understanding the customer so well that you understood them better than they understood themselves. And this is one of the elements we've looked at with really highly successful organizations who get customer service delivery correct or get it right, is because they really understand who they serve. And we talk in this respect about understanding our team really well. In module number 8, we talk about creating a standout team. What's a standout team? Well, a standout team is a team that has a great brand. You know, in some organizations, if you've ever worked in a large organization, often there'll be a team and people will say, those guys look like they're having a lot of fun. It's a great team. I want to be part of that team. And you know, there are also other teams who you would say, that team really sucks. I don't want to work with that team. Obviously, you don't want to be that team. What we talk in this one is about how do you create the right brand for your team? And of course, remember, the brand of your team represents you as a manager, as a leader. And it's really important in thinking, how do you differentiate your team? And one of the things we focus in on here is using the age-old technique of saying, what's the vision? Could you create a really compelling, exciting ambition for your team, such that it really excites the people in your team, just as a great organization would when it comes to setting a vision and a strategy. In our world, I get to, and you know, we work with lots of different CEOs where we see them go through the creation process of creating a vision, a mission, a set of values, a strategy. And I was always interested, why do those leaders seem to be more excited about their vision and their future than kind of anyone else in the company? It's not because everyone else doesn't care as much. It's because the leaders who created the vision, of course, are excited about it because they created it. And it's exactly the same in our small teams. So can we create a vision of tomorrow that excites people? And of course, your perception of what's going to happen tomorrow really excites you in the present. So having a compelling vision for tomorrow is really, really important, as we all know, and we focus on that in module number 8. In number 9, we look at developing you and your team. Sounds obvious because in a way, the whole World Class Manager program is designed to help develop you and your team, but we zero in on this one specifically in module number 9. In number 10, we look at the relationship between yourself and more senior people. We believe that managing upwards is really an art form. And it's an art form that you can perfect and you need to practice. The reason why this is so important is because the quality of the relationships that you develop with more senior people. Now, again, you may run your own company and there are probably going to be other senior external stakeholders, customers, investors that you might want to develop the right relationships with. If you work inside of an organization, you've probably got more senior people, the board, the CEO, the chairman, that you may decide that these are relationships that you want to develop more and develop strong relationships. Why is that important? Well, of course it is, because the more that senior people see you in the right way, it means, of course, that you can get to develop and grow your own career. So managing upwards is a really effective technique for propelling your career. Module number 11, we look at what we call presenting yourself with presence, or presenting with presence, as we call this module. And we crunched an entire day's training program into a 17-minute education video, which is in this particular module, where we really look at how do you get seen in the way that you want to be seen. So some people feel quite frustrated that actually they've got these skills, they've got these ambitions, they've got these abilities that other people don't see them in this way. And it's quite like that in a large organization. If you work for a large organization, often most other people in the organization will feel like that way too. I used to be involved with an organization years ago where we surveyed thousands and thousands of people every year. One of the most low scoring parts of that employee survey was where we asked the question, do you have skills that the organization could use but doesn't? So on one hand, people are saying that I feel really overwhelmed at work. I've got lots to do. I'm pressured. I'm stressed. On the other hand, people are saying, actually, I feel quite underutilized. So I'm overwhelmed and I'm underutilized. So how we present ourselves, how we put ourselves forward, how we get our message out there is really, really important. And of course, when we combine that with module number 4, and we think about time, of course, not to cause any alarm, but time is always running out, right? So it's one of those things that we've got to get on if we're really serious about becoming a more senior manager and a leader in an organization. Presenting your message and having a sense of presence where people feel like they want to engage with you is such an important element of being a world-class manager. And then the final module, module number 12, we call being a strategic leader. Now, we're not focusing here on McKinsey style strategy development or anything like that. What we did with module number 12 is we looked at some of the key roles represented on an organization's leadership team. So anywhere we've been in the world, whether we've worked in Morocco or in France or in Canada or wherever else, we always find that organizations have the similar type of roles represented on the leadership team. So we'll find a CEO, we'll find a CFO or chief financial officer, we'll find a CHRO, what exactly? A chief HR officer, we'll find a chief technology officer, a lot of chiefs, right? But we'll understand that in a leadership team, there will be a lot of senior people that represent the disciplines you need to run a well-run organization. So you need someone thinking about the strategy, you need someone thinking about the finance, you need someone thinking about the people, you need someone to think about the technology, someone to think about the sales. And what does all of that mean for us as managers? And we break down 10 key board roles and kind of say, like, so what? What does that mean for us, for me, as a manager growing my career? And we believe that often the senior leaders in an organization tell us they wish they would have learned this stuff a little sooner in their careers. So we've taken some of the key elements that sit on a leadership team, on an executive team, of the types of issues that a CFO or a chief technology officer would be concerned about and help you to understand so we can better engage and, of course, develop better relationships with those people. So those are the 12 modules of the World Class Manager program. They all work in very much the same way. So they're platform based. Each one of these 12 elements has a training video accompanying it, which lasts around 12 minutes. We have workbooks, we have assessment questions. It's very interactive. We've just launched a brand new platform, so the technology behind it is completely mobile enabled, works really well. We've now had thousands and thousands of managers around the world go through the World Class Manager program. And we have people from organizations like big banks, big manufacturing firms, national broadcasting organizations, from some of the best known brands of organizations in the world. And they choose the World Class Manager program because we did some very specific work to look at what's practically useful for us as time poor managers in a very, very busy world. So I hope I've done a good job of explaining really not just why we created the World Class Manager program, but really what constitutes it in its 12 modules. And I hope also that there's been some insights in there to help you think about your own career and how you propel yourself to be more successful too. I think we're going to take a pause there given the time, and then we'll see if there are any questions that have come in. So we'll jump over to the questions.
Hi Wayne, it's Ashley. We do have a question in from Mark, and Mark wants to know, what do you think is the key difference between leadership and management in relation to our program?
This is one of the most commonly debated areas, the differences between leadership and management on a platform like LinkedIn, for example. I don't think a day goes past without me seeing some debate about leadership, management, some chart, a graph, an image that shows what a great leader versus a manager does. The truth is that they're very, very closely linked. And I don't think actually that there's a way to delineate between what a manager and a great leader do. The reason why I say that is because we took a view in our program that actually you play a multiple of or a number of roles at any point during the day. So it might be, in certain conversations, you play more of a leadership role. In certain conversations, you play more of a detailed, focused management role in helping someone with a particular task or to overcome something or to talk about something. So we don't believe that there is much of a difference, which is why we didn't call this world-class leadership. We call this the world-class manager program, because we believe that even when you become the CEO or the chairman, then you are also a manager. A CEO manages a group of people in an executive team. The chairman essentially manages the relationship with the board and also with the CEO. And as we know, we've gone to so many leadership team meetings where we found CEOs who are terrible managers. Often, if the CEO is a terrible manager, then they're not going to be a very successful leader and the organization won't succeed. So we believe that these essential traits of what we would call great management are the essential traits of any great leader also. So I hope that answers your question. Ashley, maybe you can pick up this question on when the course will be available for JCI.
Yes, thank you, Roger. Thank you for your question. The course is actually available straight away. So we would encourage you to visit worldclassmanager.com or get in touch with myself and Wayne, and we'll share the details with everyone following the webinar of how you can do that. We have a specific JCI course set up, and we're going to be including lots more about the Rise and Shine and how it connects to you as a member of JCI in terms of not only thinking about this in your own organizations in your day-to-day lives, but actually how we can start to impact the JCI organization as a wider community to help each other as well. So lots more is going to be coming on the program, and more details will be shared through HQ as we get going. But feel free to reach out to either of us beforehand while we're in the process of setting this up. So then Wayne, just back over to you. We have another question from Mark. He said, what are your top suggestions for motivating teams?
Oh, great question. Thank you, Mark. I've got lots of suggestions. Actually, if you follow us on LinkedIn, and if you do, I apologize, because I'll probably be in your face most days. But actually today, I posted a video on LinkedIn talking about how you align the strategy with my personal goals. I think this is a big area when it comes to team motivation. So you need two components. You need to make sure that you've got a vision for the team that's exciting, fundamentally exciting. And the question I would urge you to answer is, what do your team want to be famous for? Right, so again, I have no idea what sector, organization, size of organization that you're part of, but it doesn't actually really matter. Excitement about what tomorrow looks like is really important. And it's probably one of the most engaging things we can do as managers, is to ask the team, what do we want the team to be famous for? That might be within the department the team's situated within. It might be within the organization. It might be within the entire industry. It might be within the entire world, depending on how ambitious that we want to be. So what do we want the team to be famous for? What's the clarifying, unifying vision that we can feel ultimately excited about? And here's the litmus test. If it doesn't excite people, scrap it and start again and create another one. It's got to fundamentally excite people about tomorrow. And there's a psychology in there, because this is all about offering and creating hope. And I guess we probably never needed hope more than ever. So that's part one. Part two of my answer is then, does that work for the individuals? So this is all about understanding where people are coming from, understanding their preferences and their dreams, and then thinking about, does this work for them personally? And that's where really the effort comes in. And a lot of leaders don't do this effort, do this work, because they do a great job at clarifying a great vision that everyone feels, yeah, perfect, we love that. But actually, for every individual in the team, they've got a very, very personal and different reason for why they might engage and be excited about it. So one of my first ever bosses, I began working for Deloitte when I left university. And one of the first managers I had was brilliant. He used to ask me, going all the way back to age 7 or 8, what I wanted, what my parents did, what my ambition was, why I had that type of ambition. And he really did a good job of trying to understand me at my pure essence of what my hopes, dreams, and ambitions were. So of course, you find a manager like that, he was able to work out what Wayne wants and tie that really nicely to what the team's ambition is. And therefore, you've got this great alignment between what I do and what the team does. So again, on the video today, I was talking about how do you align an organization. You've got to align it through managers, and it's got to solve this personal question of, so what? What's in this for me? And I think that's the key to it. Long answer, but I hope that answers your question, Mark. Thank you.
Thanks, Wayne. And thank you to Marin for your question. And the question is, do you think that Module 8 is even more important now we're in the age of COVID?
Module 8 on creating a standout team. Well, I guess it is, and I don't know the reason behind your question, but I can guess, and I guess there's, again, two areas here. So when we look at creating a standout team, there's two things, one around the brand of the team, and then also for you as a manager and as a leader, thinking about your own brand. The stronger your brand, the stronger you're able to get across your messages around the value that you bring to the role or to any other potential organization will, of course, stand us in good stead in a world where, let's face it, lots of people are losing their jobs. I'm based in London. I live in London. We have a new lockdown as of a couple of days ago, yesterday. We now have something like 700,000 people who've lost their jobs in the last 6 months. I've been also looking at the jobless numbers in the US, which are staggering every week. And I've been reading the National Labor Organization's statistics in the US. So, we're facing an unprecedented moment of the employment market. If you're graduating from university at this point, this is probably one of the toughest points ever in human history to graduate from university. So everything that we can do around our personal brand, which of course spills into things like the way that we show up on different social channels, the way that you manage your LinkedIn profile, the way that you use LinkedIn to create those important connections is such an important thing. So if that's kind of what you're getting at with why Module 8 is important, I 100% agree and say, yes, it's probably more important now than ever. And your individual sovereignty around your brand and your reputation is now totally important because we're in one of the most difficult employment markets we've probably ever been in, and hopefully will ever be in. But yeah.
Great stuff. Thank you, Wayne. And then just a question from Carrie. Thank you, Carrie. The course is a collaboration between the Global Growth Institute and JCI. It is run as a standard JCI training, or is it totally external? So we are an external provider, but we are, as Wayne said, an ambassador of JCI and have been for a number of years. So the idea is we are reaching out to JCI members with the World Class Manager Programme to work in partnership to develop the members together. So yes, we are an external training provider, but we are a partner and, more importantly, ambassador of the JCI community for foremost. So just wanted to clarify that point. And we will, as I say, be sending out further information, and we will have a web page for you to visit to find out more. But just hopefully that clarifies there where our sort of position between GGI and the JCI. And then a question that's just come in is, what's your hope for the GGI and JCI relationship for the future? So Wayne, as an ambassador, I will let you take that one.
Well, apart from, there's obviously, we have an interest with the World Class Manager Programme because it's something that we're very passionate about. But leaving the World Class Manager Programme aside, my hope for our relationship with JCI is really a continuation of where we've been. And I would like to do more and more of that. The one thing I've found is I have no lack of enthusiasm in the CEOs and leaders that we meet with and work with to get involved with an organization like JCI. And I think that by joining forces and working closer with the private sector, I think so much more impact can be made. So again, if you take some of the SDGs, for example, and given I'm an economist by training, I like SDG 8. If we look at sort of decent work and economic growth, there is so much that can be done. And I don't think a lot of organizations understand that there even is an organization out there called JCI. So any one of the CEOs that I've interacted with, who arguably run, some of the biggest organizations in the world, don't know. It's not like I talk to them about JCI and they say, oh yeah, of course, JCI. They don't know the JCI network exists. And I think the JCI network acts as as a brilliant operational layer that sits between these big lofty goals of SDGs and helps the commercial sector, the private sector, to operationalize and get them into action through the JCI network. And for me, when I look at the 200,000 members around the world, it's not necessarily just the 200,000 members, assuming that each one of us probably has, on average, 500 to 1,000 connections. We've got hundreds of millions of connections and our network and our extended network. And again, I think how we leverage that through using the commercial sector and big business to better engage with JCI is something that I'm really passionate about. Again, I come at this because it's not that I believe that we've got evil corporate leaders out there, well, maybe some, but on the most, they're generally nice people and they generally genuinely do care. I think the reason why they're not as impactful as we'd want them to be, given their resource, is because they just don't know. When I took, again, one of the leaders to New York to the JCI Partnership Summit a few years ago, we had dinner following the presentation. And he actually said to me that, he learned about infant mortality rates in Africa. He understood now about why educating young women and girls in developing economies was so important. And as he was explaining this to me, I was looking at him thinking, I don't get this, because you've got a director of CSR or corporate social responsibility who sits on the leadership team, but they focus on charitable acts. So they might get behind a big charitable movement like UNICEF or something like that, but they sort of give money corporately, but they don't really engage emotionally in what these organizations are trying to accomplish. So I think, again, long answer, I'm a good fan of long answers, but I think my continuation of fostering the connection between the private sector and the brilliant network of JCI is something that I'm really passionate about and committed to.
Fantastic. Thank you, Wayne. And then a question in from Anne. She is excited about the new session. So thank you, Anne. What has been the inspiration behind it?
Behind the World Class Manager Program, I guess that's what Anne's asking. The inspiration was, well, there was a few things actually. Well, one was a very personal one. I don't tell this story much, but actually I'd gone to New Zealand and Australia, and we were developing and training managers there. And then the organization we were working with said, can you come back again? And then the prospect of saying to my wife, I'm going to go again for 3 weeks to Australia and New Zealand, didn't feel like an appealing option, because Mrs. Clarke wouldn't have been so happy with that suggestion. So we talked about the idea of running development sessions for managers virtually. This is a long time ago, 7 years ago, 6, 7 years ago. And we did that and it was quite successful. And then we built on that method. And then we decided to make the program platform based. So that was a personal element. The other compelling element was the fact that most of the CEOs we work with are genuinely frustrated that they can't develop their managers fast enough. In today's world, we've got a challenge where our attention span is completely shot to death. We are operating on an attention span, if you're a TikTok fan, of 10 to 15 seconds on stories on social media channels. We have a new challenge for how we learn, and especially in organizations. So companies and corporations were frustrated that they can't develop management quick enough because the old method of using a classroom-based mechanism to do that just didn't really work. So the whole idea of the World Class Manager Program is it was something that could be delivered quickly at pace. And we learned that through some of the early work we were doing with corporates as well.
Thanks, Wayne. And a question in from Jaya on how do we sign up and the price. So don't know if you want me to take this one, Wayne, but just to let you know, so our program is actually priced at £199 and the dollar equivalent, but actually for JCI members, we do offer a 50% discount. So it is $99 and that gives you 12 months access to the entire course. We also run monthly live webinar sessions that will be exclusive for the JCI community as well. And there's lots of different insight sessions as well as the 12 modules that come into the program. So in terms of signing up, what we'd recommend for now to make sure you get the discount is you contact myself or Wayne directly, and then we will be sharing a link within the next week or so of how you get that at the discounted price. But you can visit for more information, worldclassmanager.com. But again, we will share our email addresses to reach out to us directly to make sure that you put that through and you have your member discount. So I hope that answers your question. And then I've got a question, Wayne, from Dan, and he said, what are the most common problems you see regarding professional reconversion, and how do you suggest that people overcome them?
Professional reconversion.
Reconversion, and how do you suggest people circumvent them?
I'm not sure what I understand by reconversion. Maybe you could rephrase that, Dan.
Yeah, drop us a line, Dan, and let us know. Yeah. Okay.
You mean like they're really awful and we got to convert them to being good? That's difficult.
And then Carrie
Oh,
again.
of course. Sorry. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yes, and Carrie said, could local chapters invite companies to the training? 20 years ago, the World Business Game was sold like that, and helping local chapters funding it at the same time.
It's an interesting, a very interesting question. The answer is I don't know, and it's certainly something that I will talk with World President about, and with the Secretary General as well. I think it's a really interesting suggestion of how we can use that. Of course, any way that we can incentivize and get the best usage of the platform and the program, of course, we'll invite conversation on that. So thank you.
Great. And then we've got another question from Anne. She said, Ambassador Wayne, in a perfect world, what kind of session would you join JCI for next?
That's a great question. And the perfect world would be where we, I guess, turn the tables and we get, again, I would like to involve corporate leaders. What I usually do with corporate leaders is I bring them along and I get them to talk and share, and they gain questions from the audience in a very traditional mechanism. I think I'd like to turn that on its head, and I'd like to put CEOs and leaders in a different position of having to learn from JCI members. We've never done that before. I think that would be a really interesting way to do it and change the game for how we engage with the corporate leaders. That would be my dream, actually. We should do that next. Why not? That'd be great.
Okay, fantastic. And I think we've just got a note through regarding Dan's question, just finally, regarding the current problems. And we think, Dan, you were referring to starting a new career or learning new skills during COVID.
It's a great question, actually, and apologies I didn't understand it before. I think this is something massive. So in the UK, for example, we just had a big media storm a few weeks ago because there was a government organisation who put out an advert which was really bad because it showed a ballerina who should now be retraining to be a cyber expert, because actually now performing ballet is no good because there's no performances allowed anymore. Everyone understood what the government meant by it, but it was a really badly put together advert. And the reason why I say that is because every government, I guess, who's been through or going through something COVID related is facing this really interesting skills challenge. It's certainly something that we as GGI are focused on in the UK. And actually we're building at the moment a re-employment program, which is going to be aimed at people who have lost their job or been displaced out of their work due to COVID. And I think keeping on top of your skills is really, really important. The one thing I would add for people, if you are looking to retrain and reskill yourself, is again, you've got to do it in a way where you've got to think about what type of sector or industry or organization, even more specific, is this relevant to. As we found during COVID, there are some organizations who've really thrived and grown. If you're into investing, I believe that the Zoom, the platform that we're all on now, valuation values their business at something like anywhere between 70 to 100 times its earnings. And if you understand the world of investing, that's a big valuation, right? And it's an over-the-top valuation, many people would say. Other people would say, no, actually, it's the right valuation. And the reason why it's a good valuation is because this platform has real-world utility. It has real value. And I think what we've got to do with our own skills is make sure that they've got real value to them. So retraining and re-educating and reskilling ourselves is important, but it can be a waste of energy and time and money if we're not educating and reskilling ourselves for the right type of role that maybe is going to be in demand now and next, which is not easy for some of us, depending on where we've come from and the skill sets we have. But I think it's a really, really important area to look at for sure.
Fantastic. Thanks, Wayne. We have a question that says, you talked about bridging the gap between corporate leaders and important causes. Do you think that corporate leaders are doing enough to address global causes? What role do they play in building a better future, and especially after COVID?
My answer is no. I don't think that corporate leaders are doing enough. I think that the intention is there. And one of the things you can take a look at is every year the UN Global Compact have around about 1,000 signatories of the UN Global Compact principles, and they're brilliant. I certainly have been quite closely connected to them because we had the brilliant Gail Kell, who was the Director General or Executive Director of the UN Global Compact, who came to the JCI Partnership Summit a few years ago. And now I believe that there's a newly installed Director General or Exec Director of the UN Global Compact. It's a fantastic set of principles. I couldn't tell you all the 10 off the top of my head, but I know that they focus on lots of things to do with principles around the way businesses operate. Could be from anti-bribery to money laundering to all sorts of ways to look at creating better businesses. And as a good example, over 1,000 or 1,000 or so CEOs sign that pledge every year. I've met with some of the organizations who signed this pledge, and actually inside their organizations, they don't even realize that the CEO has signed the pledge. The CEO themselves are excited and fired up about it because they get to go to this event at the UN and sign this pledge. Why wouldn't they be excited about it? But often no one else really in the organization knows that they've even committed to this. So it's not that they don't care. And again, that's my fundamental belief here, is the fact that they maybe don't have the internal strength in their organization to mobilize and act, or the CEOs aren't spending enough time trying to make that happen. You know, we have to admit that CEOs have a tremendously conflicted diary and agenda. They're very busy people, and making sure that they focus on this is really, really important. So, you know, so I think we can do more, and the corporate leaders definitely can do more, which is why I come back to our role of JCI of helping to engage and educate. So if you think about the JCI network of, let's say, 200,000 people, of the 200,000 people in JCI, how many of the 200,000 work in organizations, in big organizations? There's going to be thousands and thousands of us who work in these organizations. How much engagement do we have as JCI members with the CEOs of the organizations we work for? I can tell you from my engagement with JCI members, not that much, to be honest. And I think, given my experience of interacting with CEOs, they would love nothing more than interact with JCI. So I think we right now, inside of our JCI family and network, can do so much to engage with the corporate leaders that we probably have access to already, let alone anyone outside of who we know in our relationship set. So I think that's one important element. Key first step, we've got to engage more with the corporate leadership. And once we get the engagement, then we can educate leaders. Once we start to educate leaders, of course, magical things start to happen because they do have lots of resources at their command, but they don't often mobilize because people just don't have an idea about that. And like I said, the story earlier, when I sat for dinner with the CEO after I brought them to Partnership Summit, it was like he had a revelation. I think that was the year that JCI partnered with the Nothing But Nets UN Foundation, and there was a story of a malaria death, which really touched a personal nerve for him because he has young children, and he'd never really considered the impact of malaria because why would he? He just doesn't interact with anyone in that world, and it doesn't feature. So the education part of this is something really, really important, and that's why I believe also JCI has a unique position or proposition to play here in how we engage with the private sector.
Fantastic. And a really great question that's just come in. If you could describe the course in one word only, what would it be and why?
Success. This is all about your success. When we created the program, and I often say this to managers when I run the program. So often when we're launching this course inside of an organization, we've got organizations like the BBC that have got lots of people on the program. We've got banks and other organizations like that, and HSBC have been part of it as well. Of course, when I say to the employees of these organizations, and I feel an obligation, of course, to make sure that this is tied to the organizations they work for, I also feel an obligation for their own personal journey. And I don't know where that personal journey takes them. It might be that they become more senior and want to work in that organization. Often I say, let's assume the CEO is not listening. You might not necessarily want to work for this organization long term. And that's the truth. So this is all about, from my and our organization's perspective, about your personal success. This is about making you successful, whatever that success needs to look like. That might be you work for a charitable organization and you really want to get more income into the charity and make a greater impact. That might be that you're in an old-fashioned commercial financial services business and you want to make a more successful organization. It might be that you're in a manufacturing business and you want to improve the quality of something that you produce or improve the safety of the organization. So whatever the outcome is, our belief is that great management is key to it, and our focus is on success, really would be. It's a great question. I think that's the word that came to mind for me.
Fantastic. And we've got another great question in from Whelan. He says, does the World Class Manager modules look at the relationships between multilateral organizations that collaborate on programs amongst the CEOs from different cultures?
No, is the answer. It's a quick answer, isn't it?
Quick answer.
It's a great question. Actually, we have so there's the World Class Manager program as it exists at the moment, and we also have 12 new modules that are coming into the program in January. So they cover, in a way, more deeper topics, things like emotional intelligence, things like difficult conversations at work. How do you transition from being a manager to a leader? Actually, we cover off in the program. We look specifically at what a people-led CEO does. So we go harder on some of the softer issues of how you motivate a team and create more success. But we don't touch upon what you related to in your question, which is actually a really smart thing, but it's not for this particular program. We will be creating a version 3 of the World Class Manager program next year, so maybe it's something we can consider. And if you're interested in helping us with the content, let us know. One of the things we want to do actually as we create further programs is to do more with different people and collaborate differently on the content creation. So if you're interested in working with us on some of that content, let us know.
Great stuff. Fantastic. And the final question from Whelan is, when is the official launch of the World Class JCI program? Today. I think we're up and running and we're ready to go. So yeah, as I say, you're going to hear loads more from us, but it is open. It is there for you to come and use and get in touch with us and get started should you wish to do so.
Yep.
Okay, and then I think we're about to wrap up the session. Any final words from you, Wayne, before we go?
The only final words, I guess, quick thing is we're in a process right now where lockdown for many of us is changed the way that we live. Many of us are struggling through all sorts of things, emotionally, financially. There's all sorts of struggles going on. One of the things that we did at the beginning of lockdown is we created a series called Lockdown Lowdown, and these were 10 free videos related to how you manage people remotely. And we put that stuff out there, partly because I was being asked to do so much of it for different organizations. I got sick of it and thought, actually, why don't we just do it and do it for free and put it out there? So we're going to send you, or we'll add the link somewhere. I don't know how we get it to you, but we've got this sort of free stuff. So I'd love it if you want to access some of that. It's open access stuff. It's free to access. Please feel free to do that. And I think as much as we can, as much as you would like to, please engage with us on the different social channels, certainly on LinkedIn, where we spend a lot of time and energy. Our sort of mission as we work continuously is to constantly share insights. On an average week, I'm probably meeting with 3 or 4 different CEOs of organizations. And often the reason why I create so much content on LinkedIn is because I have a lot going on in the head and I want to try and get it out because we've got so much that we engage with. So as much as we can do to share with you, we will do. And of course, if you'd like to get involved in the World Class Manager program more formally, then of course we'd be delighted to welcome you into that as well. And Alex and the team, thank you so much for the platform today. Apart from World Class Manager, I'm fundamentally committed to being and continue to being a valuable JCI ambassador, and anything that you think I can do or do more of or help to connect you to in any way, just let us know. Thank you.